about different strategies, but we're going to be talking about different strategies tonight as we kind of dive into the lesson plan, but with an emphasis really on the power of multifamily when it comes to building wealth, the power of investing, and just what that looks like, and how you too can leverage multifamily to accomplish your goals when it comes to retirement, for his new career potentially, generating passive income, whatever your goal may be. You can look and see how can you leverage multifamily investing, real estate investing in general to accomplish your goals. And so we're going to dive into that. As Faye talked about a little bit, we're going to look at going into some of the numbers. We got a few calculations, not as much as last night, but I definitely want you guys to take notes because at the end, I'm going to kind of give you guys a checklist on how to navigate real estate investing and kind of give you the blueprint, if you will, to getting your first deal, to getting your next deal, and kind of the things, some of the things that you need to think about in that process to go from A to Z in order to be successful in it. So strategies for financial success. We're diving in day number 3 here in the boot camp, and we're locked in. And we're going to be talking about real estate investing strategies and how we can leverage those to kind of get to that next level. That we talked about the mindset, the changes that we need to make with the limiting beliefs. We went into the different phases of real estate when you start looking at the different cycles, and understanding where you are. One of the things that just came out yesterday, and was watching some content on it today, that inflation for 2 periods in a row has increased, unfortunately. And so that's one of the things that we've been tracking is inflation is a little bit stickier than what a lot of people were thinking. And so now that we see the actual trend has started going in the wrong direction. And so we'll see if that's going to drive future rate increases where interest rates are going to continue to go up above where they are right now, hovering around 7%. But we understand that recessions are where millionaires are made. If you look like the last recession in 08, that it made a lot of millionaires and a lot of billionaires as well too. And so that's what we want to understand and look at when it comes to the metrics that we're looking at, everything that's happening in the economy, but how we can leverage that to move forward. And so we talk about the real estate strategies, but also how to manage risk, how to mitigate risk, how to embrace the journey, and what does that look like as you continue to go through. And so one of the things that I just wanted to kind of see where people are, see what everybody's kind of thinking. What do you think for as investment? What's the right property for you? It could be single family. I started single family. Right now, the majority of the portfolio is multifamily. But what are you guys thinking right now in regards to real estate? Anybody looking at mobile home parks, RV parks, or self storage, retail, or some of the other where in regards to real estate? Anybody looking at mobile home parks?
Single family. No mobile home
Single
parks
family?
here. No mobile home parks
Okay.
here in Florida because of the hurricanes. No way.
Oh yeah, I got you. I got you. Yeah.
So I'm staying clear of that, but looking at family, looking at single family homes. My goal on that is to eventually have 10 single family homes that are outright paid for, that I don't have to worry about, that it just bring me income. And then I just did my live right now, and I know kind of shooting for the stars, but I mean I'd love to have 1,000 doors now. It may be a little unrealistic, but again, that you got to reach for the stars to get where you want to go. So even if you only get there 10% or 50% of what you want, you got to shoot high in my eyes. So that's what I want. I see all these athletes, and I see all the actors and stuff that are buying doors. Why not us? I'm wealthy,
No,
I'm a real
100%,
estate investor,
100%.
right? I'm worthy, right?
Facts, facts. You know it. You know it. No, I love it. Thanks for sharing that, Chris. Anybody else? Well, cool. That's the thing. It is all up to you. You have an unlimited buffet, if you will, in front of you that you can pick and choose. You can have this, for maybe 1 or 2 years, and you evolve into something else. It's dynamic, and so that's the thing that we got to figure out is just understand that you have to make a decision. And once you make that decision, it's up to you to move out with the execution. And so we're going to dive into that and kind of go through. Make sure Faye already kind of gave you the public announcement. Grab your calculator, your worksheets. I know you guys are ready. But choosing your target. And one of the things I want you guys to, one that you got to up front, you got to know is know your market. We talked about some of the metrics last night, following the population growth, understanding where the jobs are going in the market, and just understanding those supply and demand trends that we have. Where are the interest rates? We talked a little about that. Inflation is sticky. The Federal Reserve is probably going to have to increase the federal funds rate in order to slow down because the economy is going so strong right now that they're going to have to continue to increase rates in order to slow down the economy. And looking at those economic indicators. So know your market. Understanding your investment goals. Are you a short-term profit maximization? So that's fix and flip. You're looking to go in, buy an asset, add value, sell it extremely quick, and make a short-term profit. Or are you looking kind of like what Chris talked about? Hey, he wants to have those units. He wants to have them completely paid off and then eventually go to larger amount of doors. He's looking to build long-term wealth with that accumulation of assets. Or you may just be strictly looking at, hey, how can I generate as much passive income as possible? Or, for a lot of people, like, hey, I want to generate enough passive income to cover my monthly expenses and kind of start from there. And so now you just got to understand where your investment goals lie in regards to the assets that you're looking to accumulate. And so that's the big one, because right now, if you're 60 years old, your investment goals are going to look different than someone that's 20 years old. And so being realistic, understanding where you are with your investment goals is going to help you get clarity on the next steps that you need to be taking. Now that leads right directly into your risk tolerance, because if you're older, you're near retirement, where you need your nest egg, your investments, and that passive income, you're probably not going to be doing a whole lot of high risk investing compared to someone that's just starting out, that's in their 20s, 30s. They're going to be looking at a little bit. They're going to be able to push the envelope a little bit more and maybe take some more risky bets. But you got to understand the tolerance of risk and identify what's the best strategy for you. What's your access to capital? Do you have a lot of money saved up for property acquisition, your renovations, your ongoing expenses? Are you going to look at capital partners where you bring in maybe one or two money partners in the deal? Maybe you're going to look at, hey, get hard money lenders as a form of debt that you can bring in for the acquisitions and the renovations. And so you just want to look at what do you have access to? And it doesn't always have to be in your bank account or in your retirement account. That it may be another individual or maybe another institution where you can get that access to that capital to get the deal done. Your time horizon. We talked about kind of the ages of, just different investors depending on where you are right now in your investment life cycle. But you want to look at the timeline that, hey, are you looking for short-term gains or long-term wealth? And just understanding your horizon for investments and that period that you're looking to hold on to it and own it is going to kind of drive how you execute your strategy and the asset classes that you're going to look at trying to invest into. And then understand, hey, where are you at in regards to your skill set, your experience, with the knowledge, the information, your experience level? Do you need to maybe partner with someone that has more experience hands-on? Or do you need to just continue to pour into yourself, get the knowledge, join a mastermind group, go to conferences, network with other investors, join your local real estate investor association, going to meetups, and just starting to continue to inundate yourself with real estate and real estate investing and being around more people who are already successful at what it is that you're trying to do and investments that you're trying to add to your portfolio. And then lastly, we're going to look here, what is the exit strategy? Are you looking to sell the property for a profit after you go in and add value, or refinancing to keep it, which, on the single family side is the BRRRR strategy. You buy, renovate, rent it out, refinance, and then you repeat. Or you're looking to just continue just to hold it for rental income. You may not actually go through and refinance and put new debt on it, but you're going in, putting your money into the deal, and you're looking to hold it for more long-term wealth accumulation. And then, of course, we got the regulatory considerations. You want to look at your tax implications, zoning regulations, if you're going to get permits, when you start looking to new development, new construction. What are the laws there that govern real estate for tenants and landlords, owners? And just understanding just the regulatory considerations. We talked about that last night, that mostly Republican or red states are more landlord friendly. compared to more democratic states or more tenant or resident friendly. And so you just kind of got to know how things are swayed in the area that you're looking to invest, so you can be an informed investor with whatever area that you're going to look to invest in. And then you want to understand, how can I scale this up? Kind of like what Chris was alluding to. He said, "Hey, I'm 1,000 units." So like, okay, how does that scale up? Do I want to have 1,000 single family homes, or do I want to have 10 100 unit apartment complexes? It's different ways to get you there. And so one that take a lot more time if you're talking about 1,000 transactions, and the other one you're talking about only 10 transactions. And so now you just look at it like, okay, how does this asset scale to help me meet my goals in the allotted time that I have? Whereas that, hey, if I got 40 years to do 1,000 transactions, yeah, it's doable. But if you only got 10, you want to get there in 10, 15 years or 5 years. It's like, can you really do 1,000 single family transactions in that short amount of time? And so, though, thinking all those things through it simultaneously, now you start to see your strategy start to formulate when you start taking these bits and pieces, these different individual objectives, and you bring them all together and kind of look at them in totality, and you can move forward. All right, so exploring some of those different those options. What did you say, Faye?
Chris is like, no, not gonna do 1,000 single family.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So some of those strategies that's out there that you have access to. So buy and hold strategy, where you just go outright purchase the property and you're looking to hold it for an extended period of time and bring in that passive income each month. Some of the things we talked about last night, you want to probably focus on like growing neighborhoods, where we see, hey, new schools coming in. You see the trends where you have with the different jobs coming in, your population growth. So you probably want to be in that path of progress going forward into the future. And you want to also, you're going to be looking for that appreciation, that icing on the cake over time as well. And so that's where you're just tapping into all four of those primary areas that we love with real estate: the tax advantages, the debt pay down from the residents, the monthly cash flow, and then that appreciation long term. And so, looking at this, that the median existing home price, we talked about that last night, it rose 15% from January 2021 to January 2023, which is great for those who own assets and own property during that time period. So here's our first example. So if you purchased a rental property in a growing neighborhood for $250,000, over the next 5 years, the property appreciates by 25%, reaching a value of $312,500. Additionally, you earn $1,500 per month in rental income, totaling $90,000 over 5 years. After deducting the expenses and mortgage payments, your total gains from this investment amount to $152,500. So over that 5 year period, you between cash flow and appreciation, you made $152,500. Not too bad. So the fix and flip strategy. So basically, you're buying ugly houses, you're fixing them up, and then you're selling them for a profit. And it's usually under a year. And whenever you own a piece of real estate for less than a year, the IRS views that as ordinary income because it wasn't owned more than a year. They don't view it as an investment. And so that's the thing you got to know with that fix and flip strategy. Like we talked about, it's like, okay, what are the regulatory implications with the taxes with this strategy? And so that's one of the big ones that you want to take into account. But you buy this rundown property, you invest in the renovations, then you sell it for a profit in 6 months, and you increase the value. And so this is one of the big ones here that just kind of talked about. In 2022, that the average fix and flip profit was $71,000. Could you do something with an extra $71,000 if you just flip one house a year? That's a pretty nice number. But the thing with that you need to understand is just there's a lot of work and process underneath that when you start unpacking, being able to do the due diligence, find the property, find the contractors to come in, manage the project, having the capital to close on it, having the capital for the renovation, having the capital for the closing costs, and then, being able to sell it for the right price that you underwrote it for. Like you have all those things that have to execute in order to achieve that over that 6-month period. So there's a lot to it, even though it's kind of simple, but at the same time, it's not. And one of the things that if you're fixing, flipping, and you're flipping houses like we talked about over the median sales price in your area, it's going to be a little bit tough because right now we see that those properties that are over the median sales price, they're staying on the market a lot longer. They're not moving as fast. And so you're having to sit on those holding costs for a longer period of time. But you want to plan for that in advance, whereas that now you have that budgeted, those holding costs. And now if it sits on the market 9 months, you're prepared. And it's not getting to the point where it's like, okay, I'm scrambling, trying to bring everything together in order to cover those costs while you're waiting for the property to sell. So here's an example here. So buying down a rundown property, $100K, after investing $50,000 in renovations and holding costs, you can sell the property for $200,000. So your total gains from that flip would be $50,000 after deducting the renovation expenses and the transaction costs. So that's kind of the strategy, two of those strategies. With the rental strategy, which I think everybody probably is familiar with, is really just you going and buying a property and you're renting it out and you're going in it with the intention from day one. It was just, hey, add in the property to your portfolio, and then it's generate rental income each month. And a subset of that is going to be passive income, your cash flow. That's after you pay your expenses that you're going to bring in. So right now, was it from 2021 to 2022? The average rent in the U.S. increased by 8.5%. And so one of the things you'll see with the apartments that we're going to talk about here a little bit later in tonight's presentation, that was one of the strategies that we saw, because the rents were so low and we knew rents already had rose so much that there was like we knew that there was an enormous amount of upside with being able to go in, because we knew rents already had appreciated, but the owner hadn't raised rents in a long time. And with some of the units that we knew that the property was it was built under a low income tax credit program, so LITEC, LITC, and it just came out. And so now we knew that the property was eligible where you could eventually over time raise the rents up to bring them up to market rate. And so having that information and just knowing where rents are, and then knowing that there's no new multifamily construction anywhere in the entire city, when we're looking at Montgomery, we knew that there wasn't going to be a whole lot of competition coming online anytime soon that would kind of jeopardize our business plan. So here we have a 4-unit at $800,000. The monthly rent per unit is $2,200, and for a total of $8,800 in monthly income, or $105,600 per year. So for a 5-year period, that adds up to about $528,000. And so when you go through kind of how we did with the other rental property, you take out all your taxes, management fees, and maintenance, that your total gains from the rental income amounted to about $159,000 over that 5-year period. And so this is the power of real estate. And I really love this one. One for veterans, because guess what? You can buy a 4-unit with your VA loan with 100% financing. So you could get into an asset like this with no money down out of pocket. And then for those who aren't veterans, you have the FHA program where you could get into an asset like this with only 3.5% down. And back in March of this year, the conventional, I think it was Fannie Mae, with conventional loans, now you're only required to put 5% down and get into a 4-unit property with a conventional loan product, because it's all still considered residential. And so this is one of the greatest ways to build wealth, is to be able to buy a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, live in one of the units for at least a year, and become an instant landlord. And you can get into these assets with a low amount of money down. And so this is like one of the best strategies to kind of get started, just because the entry cost is so low. Would you just save it up enough to 3.5% or 5%, or in veterans, in case of my veterans, no money down, to be able to get into a 4-unit complex and becoming an instant landlord. So this right here is a great strategy.
Johnny.
Yeah.
Hey, for the veteran.
Hey, Donnell.
Hey, Donnell from Detroit. Hey, for the veteran. So I'm a veteran, you're a veteran. So are you saying the VA loan can be used for a commercial purpose? I thought only for residential, like single family.
Yeah, so 4 units, triplexes and duplexes are still considered residential. You don't get into the commercial space until you get to 5 units.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Got it. Okay. Good deal.
Yep.
I have
Yep.
a follow-up.
Most definitely.
So Johnny, you
Okay.
said 100% can be financed. Does that include
Okay.
Yep.
renovations and everything?
So usually you're not gonna have a whole lot of renovations. So I've used the VA loan to buy foreclosures that needed like paint.
Mm,
None of them needed a roof replacement, but like you
mm,
can buy a house like with bad carpet, ugly paint, old appliances, like all that stuff. That's fine. They'll let you buy a property that was like, long as there's like no major issues with
mhm,
like you need the HVAC system has to work. You can't have like
mm,
foundation issues. You
mhm.
can't have like a old roof, things like that, that they're gonna call out. But other than that, like if it's just old and out of date and need updating, they don't really care. It'll still qualify.
I'm getting
Wow.
excited. I know we're gonna talk about more of this on Friday, but
Yeah.
Don and Al and I were just getting ahead.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
All
Hey,
right.
but
Wow.
Johnny, is there a cap on the amount of units for that FHA? Like you said, you mentioned a 5, but can you go up to like a 10 or more?
So it's capped at 4. No, that's a great question. So it is
Mm,
capped at 4 because 4 is the limit when it comes to being qualified as residential.
Okay.
mm, mm.
All right,
We
got
have
you.
a lot of four units in Detroit. A lot of 4-unit properties.
Yep. So and that's the thing that with that it's a great option because you live in it 1 year. The requirement
Mm,
usually is just to live in it 1 year in one of the units. Then you can rent that unit out,
mhm,
and then from there you go ahead. You can look at however you want to do it. Look at doing the deal again, using a different loan product. But now you just have that behind you. You have that
mm.
portfolio started already, and now you're
Yeah.
just moving into. You can move into your next deal.
Okay. Okay.
When
I'm going to look into that for sure.
Yep. Nope. Yeah, it's a great program. Then yeah, let me know whatever questions you got.
with the FHA too, you have to the house has to appraise for purchase price, I believe. So it's gonna be hard to
Mm,
find something that needs a lot of work done to it and get an FHA
mm.
loan with it.
Yep, that's true. That's true. Yeah, you still got the appraisal in there for the loan value, so it can't be too busted up.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. And so I was going to show one of the videos, this video here, just kind of show you guys at work. Well, I'm gonna kind of fast forward a little bit through it.
Yeah, that's what's up right there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Heard the sound, John?
No sound.
Oh, no sound.
No,
Oh,
no
no
sound.
sound. Oh, okay. I'm sitting here. I can hear it in my ear. There
Oh, no.
is hold on 1 second.
Stop sharing and then share with sound, share again, and then you click on the share with sound button.
Yeah, we'll give it a go again here. I lose my presentation. All right, we'll just go past the video. So really just kind of a walkthrough there with one of my clients there we go. I don't know if it's gonna play, Faye. With Henry Scott, but just really walking through his project and kind of showing that whole process. Can you guys see my slides?
Nope.
No,
No,
not
not yet.
now.
Oh, here we go. Share
Share.
screen. There we go.
Okay.
No,
No, not yet.
not
Oh,
yet.
share. There we go. Share sound. Here we go.
Still not seeing it.
Yeah, it's asking me to put a pen.
Oh, there you go.
There we go.
Ah,
In a few minutes, might start, doing a little bit of a commercial break here.
Yeah.
Safe identification.
Yeah.
hey, Johnny, I appreciate your help on with that 22 unit. What happened today? I was actually supposed to close with that same seller on the property. My buyer tried to back out at the last minute. And I told her, I said, I can seek a remedy. And she said, oh, I'll be there to close, because she was trying to wiggle out. I went as far.
Wow.
Yeah. I gave
Oh.
her an extra day and everything. So,
Mm.
I got a good rapport with that seller. So I'm trying to make sure we finish this one up. And then I got to actually help her with deed of distribution, because she still has her deceased father on those units.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I'm going through that process. So I'm trying to keep that good rapport, but this buyer almost screwed me up.
Yeah, no, that's the thing when you have like multiple people in the transaction that you hope people keep their word and follow through.
Yeah, boy. Mm.
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure all my buyers have I do, what is it, proof of funds now,
Mm-hmm.
because
Okay.
I usually didn't do that all the time, because I do a lot of wholesaling and stuff on the tax sale, but I have to do it now, because some of them at the last minute they'll try to back out, or they want to adjust the deal for a few more dollars, and I'm like, no, it's too late.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Yep. For sure. And madam, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna drop this video in the Facebook group so you guys can check it out after for the sake of time.
Yeah.
And
Johnny, I had something to say. The house that you're showing in that video,
mhm.
I don't know. For instance, that's a single family.
Yes, that was a single family, Augusta, Georgia.
I'm going to tell you something. Being a real estate agent here in Michigan,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of house, for instance, say if you rented it to a family, you're probably charging them $1,200-$1,400 a month or something like that.
Okay.
If you rent it to a group home agency, you can get $3,600 a month. Triple whatever you would get from just a single family in there.
Yep. For sure. I was gonna
That's
run
one of my
by you.
goals.
Funny you should say that. I had someone reach out to me that just got a contract to house, I guess newly released. I guess I don't know if convicts is the right word, but newly released people from prison. But and he has a contract. He has a contract in Macomb County.
Oh, okay.
And so he's looking. He's looking. He hadn't got back with me, but you definitely came to mind with that, because he was telling me that he pretty much has the contract in place. The lady's ready to go with him, but he's got to find He's got to find assets to be able to move and put it together. And they're paying market rent per bedroom.
Oh yeah.
And so So you're exactly right. There's some opportunities, especially in your area. So I'll keep you apprised of that one. And that's the thing. Like, it's so many different ways out here. There's different agencies that's looking to pay top dollar for access to housing, and you just got to be able to figure it out, get out here, and make it happen.
Yeah.
Just like John was talking about with the deals, building rapport, networking, and building relationships with potential sellers and helping them create win-win situation, and and just knowing what the needs are for the city that you're living in. Then now you figure out those solutions to help them solve their problems, and you'll get rewarded. So now we're gonna kind of dive into the framework, the process. Make sure you guys are kind of taking notes along the way. But really, this kind of came through when we were doing our counterterrorism missions. During my first deployment, one of the things that we did, we looked at how we could do what we do. We would find whoever our target was. We would fix on them, understand where they are, watch them for a few hours, and then we would send in the real scruffy looking dudes in the middle of the night to go in and to do whatever they need to do to finish them out. And so kind of was going through that find, fix, finish. It's like, okay, how do we go through it, and how can I apply this to real estate? And so I came up with the find, finance, fix, finish. We put the finance piece in there because that's an intricate part of it. We're going through, but essentially we need to find the asset, we need to find the deal, we need to put the financing around it, whether we're going to do some seller financing, bridge debt, traditional loan from the bank or credit union, or if we're going to are we going to bring in hard money lenders, or are we going to raise private money, or we're going to be the bank and we're going to let them go in and we're going to take over the existing mortgage. And then after that, we're going to fix it up, we're going to execute the business plan, we're going to add value, and then we're going to finish it depending on our exit strategy. We're going to sell it, we're going to refinance, or we're going to just keep it and keep moving along. So 8100 Kid Street, this was my first step, because guess what? We talked about those billionaires that's in real estate yesterday. I've shared with you guys my experience and other real estate investors' experience. It all starts with one deal. It always starts with your first deal, that first step. A marathon starts with the first step. And so this was that first fix and flip property for us back in 2015. It was an online auction, Bank of America foreclosure outside of Washington, D.C. And it was a leap of faith. That had never done a fix and flip project up until this point. We had just used our VA loan, had bought 3 different properties, had bought a $25,000 house down in Birmingham that was a rental property. And then we had bought a $6,400 house off auction in Panama, and not in Panama City, but in Birmingham as well. And after that, we were like, okay, let's do this where we are here and just go ahead and start doing it as a business. And we dived in head first with 8100 Kid Street with this property here. And it was a process. This inspection report almost gave me a heart attack. After going through, we had done the renovations, had updated, we had put over $70,000 into the property. It had a pool. And I'm telling you guys, like, okay, I had never been hands-on with any of this stuff, but I knew it was like, okay, I need to hire the right people. I need to manage the project, and we'll get through it. But even with that, there was still stuff that I had no clue of what they were doing. You had stuff where they did replace like rock, because the property had sat for like years, and the sump pump didn't have power, so the sump pump wasn't working. And so it was black mold or lower level. We had demoed all that out. But some of the wood on that level, as you can see here, that they never replaced. They didn't, and it was the original wood still in there that had deteriorated, had rotted. And the home inspector went in there and found it all and some. And so we ended up working through and getting it all done. The buyer did back out, thank God. And we pressed through and got all the punch lists done after probably about another $4,000 of work. And we were able to get this deal done and move on to the next one. And so that was some of the pictures there. Kind of talked about, this was kind of a rambler style. So the kitchen was on the lower level there. And we went in, replaced that. That was the pool demo. We spent about $15,000 on the pool. And it was a successful project. To this day, it's probably up until the townhouse that we have coming up that we bought for $30,000, and we're gonna probably end up putting about $75,000 in it here. That's gonna start here in a couple of weeks. It's taking us probably about 4 or 5 months to get the permits. It's gonna probably be just as extensive of this that we did back in 2015. That because this taught me, it was like, hey, that as the Navy SEALs say, slow is fast, and I forgot, slow is fast and slow is good. But the big thing is you don't want to go with speed. And for me, this taught me that, hey, cosmetic flips, where you go in, you paint, you do the flooring, you replace some kitchen cabinets, appliances, and then you get in, you get out, you sell it, and you're done. That you want to have to go in. That the properties that we've done since then that had pools, I demoed the pools. I paid $7,500 still in the pool. I'm like, I'm not even doing it because it didn't really add value. And it's like, if I spend $30,000 on the pool, you can fill in the hole for $7,500. And so things like that you learn along the way. that you find your niche and you get really, really laser focused on how you want to do, what type of projects that you want to do. But the big thing is you guys can do it too. It starts with the first deal. It starts with taking action. It starts with getting out here, talking to motivated sellers, understanding what their challenges are, their concerns, and then now you walking into it with your tool set, the skills that you're learning, the strategies that you're learning, and now you're able to put a win-win situation together to help solve their problems. And so one of the things that really stuck out to me when I got started my real estate investing journey was just how wealthy people, how rich people, how they focus on buying time. They don't necessarily focus on what the cost of something is, but they're always talking about how to protect their time. And so that was one of the things, even though I didn't necessarily have a mentor, it was like, okay, just being around certain people that you knew were successful and you seeing how they operate, the questions that they're asking, and they're really focused on systems, and protecting their time. That it was something that you always kind of wondered. I always knew it's like, okay, it's something to this. And the more I read, the more I studied and realized, I was like, okay, yeah, that's it. That's it. It's like, it's not about making more money. It's about being able to take the money that you have and buy back your time and buy back the ability to not have to spend your time doing certain things that's not going to give you a high ROI. We talked about that return on investment last night in regards to the property, but also you got to think about what's the return on your investment with your time. The time that you're investing in certain things, it's like, okay, are you getting a high return on your investment by doing these activities? And then if not, then you probably shouldn't be doing those. And so that's one of the things that kind of drove me to the Millionaire Success Framework. And so this framework is all based on finding success. That we're talking about real estate investing this week, but it's really anything in life that you want to be successful at. That if you approach it from a perspective of execution, education, and the conviction that it's going to drive you to being successful at it. And so starting with that conviction, that one, you got to have that strong desire. As it's how we know what a conviction, having a strong conviction with something, having that strong desire. What's your why? Why are you doing it? Why real estate? For me, it was, I knew that, I made the decision, with my wife that she was going to stay at home and we were going to, be able to have her there with the kids. And so we lost half of the income that was coming in. But, the conviction for me is like, hey, I want to take care of my family. I don't want to have to take a step back in regards to the things that we do, the traveling, everything else, the lifestyle that we want to live. So guess what? Real estate was that vehicle to do that. We're starting that fix and flip company and doing that and starting that first deal. And so I had an extremely strong desire to be successful at it and to do it. And so the second side of that was setting bigger goals. And we just talked about it. Chris talked about having 1,000 units. That you set those big audacious goals. You set those goals to where is that you can see in the future what it is that you want to achieve. Drop in the chat right now, you guys, or somebody can come off mute. Kind of share what's that kind of big audacious goal, and I would definitely love to see. Has it changed since this week with that? Because I just want to kind of see where people are thinking to understand kind of the goals that you're having, and what you guys are thinking about trying to do.
Well, one of my goals is to go from wholesaling and buying through the tax sale to ultimately I want to do community development. I want to be able to build communities because I come across land all the time and different things like that. And that's my long-term goal, to be a full developer where I can go in, take 10, 20 acres and just build.
Nice.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Okay. For sure. No, I love it. And it's definitely doable. And I think the next step now is like, okay, let's find a developer in your local area that you can kind of ride their coattail, kind of get the process, see how they go through with allocating everything in regards to the pre-construction work, the lending, the money side, how they get the finance and all that stuff, to make that much more straightforward for you. No, I love it. Anyone else want to share? Talking big goals.
Well, one of my goals, I I got 3 granddaughters. The age is 18 months, 5 years old, and 6 years old.
Okay.
And I want to leave them an apartment, multi-unit apartment building. And they want to name each one of the buildings going to be their first name, if I can rename the building. So that's what I want to actually leave for them. And I'm at 58 years old right now. So I figure by the time I get, I want to say 5 years from now, each one of them will have their own apartment building in there with their name, you know.
All right.
And trust, with a trust to it. So that's my whole goal, leave something for a generation behind me and teach them also financial literacy. Like, this is Financial Literacy Month. I just heard on the radio here in Michigan that they're making teachers in Michigan take financial class to teach to the students. Just now. They don't even know how to, I don't know if people know what a balanced checkbook is, but that's what we had to do growing up. My mother taught me how to balance a checkbook. They just do it on the phone now, I guess, but they don't even know how to write a check. People don't even know what a check looks like, you know, so hashtag me, you know. So I want to leave my granddaughters a legacy so they can say, hey, my granddaddy thought about me, you know, and whatever they want to do with the property, you know, they'll be grown by then, but that's when it'll be turned over to them.
Yep. But I already know you're going to bring them up the right way. They're going to know what to do with it.
Yeah, for sure. I stick with y'all.
Let's go. No, I love it. And that's what it's all about. Because when it gets tough, when you have setbacks, you remember on why you're doing it and what those long-term goals are, and it makes it all worthwhile going through the adversity and the challenges that you face. And then that you know, all that goes into what's your big burning why. And those are great examples. For me, it's my family, the time freedom, being able to provide and leave that legacy, that generational wealth to help them where that they don't have to work as hard as I did, or, you know, those that came before me, my parents, my grandparents, and continue to take that baton and just carry it forward. Yeah. But going to the next one, so that's conviction. The next part is education. Having a live mentor, like that was one of the things that really, you know, kind of going through, getting out the mud, you know, bootstrapping yourself, that was kind of almost like a badge of honor that, you know, I would like to wear, like, hey, I'm doing it all by myself and I'm figuring it out. But it was like, okay, there's such an easier way, you know, if I had somebody in my circle, if I knew somebody else that was already successful in real estate investing, knew somebody that had owned apartments 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it's like, okay, what would have everything looking back, what would it look like now? And so being able to find someone that's already traveled that journey, that's got 20, 30 years your senior, or maybe it might even be someone that's younger than you that just has more experience than you, that can help you and show you the ropes in regards to the journey and the path that you're going, that they've already maybe went down. So having that mentorship, but then being able to consume on different books, podcasts, audio books when you're driving to work, while you're hanging out at the field, you know, with your children, or going to seminars, whatever it may be, the local meetups, just where you continue to get that education. Because there has always been an emphasis on like the traditional college route, 4 or 5 year college. But I think there's a lack of awareness or the need for continuous self-improvement, self-development, self-education once you get out of school. And so I think that's one of the big things, is being able to figure out what it is that you need to do to continue to stay relevant, to stay up to speed on what changes are being made across the board, or whatever it is your industry is and what you're trying to be successful at, that you have to stay in tune with that. And then live events like we're doing right now, that with technology, you know, you can jump in on a training anywhere in the world virtually. You can go to meetups in person, but being able to get that education, and it doesn't always have to be the traditional way that you think, where you're going to a college and you sit down having a lecture from a professor. That there's a lot of different ways where you can get tactical information hands-on, where you can take it and start making progress immediately. And then execution. So the execution, this is where the rubber meets the road with changing the habits, because guess what? If you change your habits, you'll change your life. If you're looking, if you're looking to lose weight, if you change your diet habits, you're gonna see an impact. If you're trying to go to the gym, you change your habit, your routine, you're going in there, getting there 3 or 4 times a week. Hey, over time, you're gonna see improvements. The same thing with real estate. If you start educating yourself, you start underwriting deals every day. If you're making at least 2 offers a week, guess what? After 52 weeks, it's highly likely that you're going to have a deal. You're going to probably have a deal or 2 under contract that you've been able to close. But it's changing those habits in regards to what we're doing, underwriting deals, networking, getting out there and actually putting offers in. If you make that a habit with looking on the market, looking at your buy box every day, it could be just like 10, 15 minutes. You're looking at deals. You're going to see your marketing out every other week, and you're building that habit, and you're setting your schedule. Because guess what? If I see your schedule, when I look at your schedule, then it's going to show me your priorities. I say that again. If I see your schedule, it's going to show me your priorities. Like if you go look at my schedule right now, that's something that I learned, that it has everything on it, from the family time, the kind of the date night, whether we're going to just watch a movie and relax at the house, or practice, and then it has all the other meetings with work as well too. Whereas that now your time is planned, that what should be going on, and now you can protect your time to focus on those things that you need to, and you can time block and focus in on it and execute. Because a lot of times, because if you don't have a plan, then everything else is going to come up and it's going to get in the way, and it's going to start chipping away at your time constantly. And next thing you know, it's going to be 5 o'clock and you hadn't got anything done. But being able to figure out how to schedule and put things on your schedule, with allocating an hour, 2 hours, 30 minutes in the morning to do your education, whether it's the real estate, your reading, your podcast, your books, during your gym time, or maybe you're an evening person, you want to do it at night before you go to bed, after you get the kids set up and going over, you're going, hey, I'm going to put 2 hours in, 2 nights out the week, to learning more about real estate, to underwriting deals, to doing whatever it is that I need to do. And so embracing that schedule, and then moving into the adversity, and just know when you move out, you have a plan, that you got to remain flexible, because guess what? Things are going to happen, things are going to shift, and you got to be able to adjust on the fly. And so when you bring all this together for success, this is what it looks like. Information plus action times repetition is going to bring you success in anything that you're doing. That having the right information, you taking action on it, actually implementing it, and then just doing it over and over again, that routine, that repetition, is going to bring you success, and that consistency. And that's the thing that you just got to realize, that that's what it takes. And you look at, use the analogy like NBA players like Steph Curry, and all the 3-point shots that he shot in order to be able to be in the league and at the level that he is, to be able to hit 4 out of 10 and shoot 40% from the 3-point line, that's made him the best shooter ever. And he only hits 4 out of 10. So that's the thing that you got to realize and get out of your own way. You don't have to be perfect. That if you everything that you're doing, if you're doing good enough and you're showing up consistently, that's going to be good enough. And so that's the thing we got to realize and understand, that success is not perfection. Success is just getting the right information, taking action, and showing up day in and day out, whether we want to or not. Safeguarding your investment. So risk. So looking at risk, rule number 1 is never lose money. Then rule number 2 is never forget rule number 1. That you want to focus in on making sound investments. And going in, that one of the things that people don't realize is, as real estate investors, we make money when we buy real estate. We don't make money when we sell. Because guess what? If you don't buy at the right price and you're looking to sell in a short amount of time, then you could lose money. And so that's why it behooves us to make sure we know what we're doing and we understand the risk. So market risk. So fluctuation in property values, rental income due to economic changes. So your market risk, that you can have property value change. There's a recession. We see a lot of foreclosures. People start losing their jobs. Then, yeah, that can have an impact on your rental income, your vacancy rate, and just the overall property values if you have a lot of foreclosures or anything like that that's happening all at one time. So during a recession, property values may drop 10 to 20%. Property specific risk, so damage, so hurricanes, hazards, floods, zoning changes. Those are risky events. That's why we get insurance, just because the covers in case something like that happens, or the tenant leaves food in the oven and they go outside and then it catches on fire, or something like that. That you just have a risk for damage from certain things like that. Flood prone area. Cost of repairs 5,000 to 50,000 severity, and so that's why we have insurance on our property. And so one of the things, I know somebody had talked about no mobile homes in Florida with Chris. That one of the things that I saw with Hurricane Michael when we were there, that a lot of people that own the trailer parks, that the trailer homes, because they're not considered homes, that they're just considered personal property, that as they get older and go down in value, that it's extremely expensive to insure them. And so the majority of the mobile home parks, those trailer homes, they didn't have insurance on those properties. When that hurricane came through and completely wiped out a lot of those parks, they were left holding the bag because it was too expensive. They didn't have insurance on the property, so it was a complete loss. So that was just something, a potential risk with owning it, that they had great cash flow, but they were kind of at risk because they couldn't afford to have insurance, just because the costs were inhibitive. And I can't even imagine what they would have to pay now. If it was too expensive before the hurricane, I know now where insurance in Florida is, that it would just be ludicrous. And here, just talk about higher interest rates and increasing mortgage payments, just how that impacts and reduces cash flow. And so that's a big one, with changes with taxes and with your insurance, that can impact your cash flow, and it's an expense that you just have to pay. Legal regulatory risk, compliance issue, disputes with tenants leading to legal problems, breaking zoning laws, something like that. That's a potential risk that you have to manage. But there's strategies to reduce the risk. And as an investor, that's your job across any investment is to manage risk. And so diversification. So to diversify from like flooding, hurricanes, type of storms, those things, you invest in different types of properties in different type of areas to diversify. So now you can look at spreading your risk out because your portfolio isn't isolated in just one area. You do your due diligence, guess what? Through research and inspections before investing. So now you hire inspectors to go in, tell you everything that's wrong with the building, and now you're limiting your ability to have surprises later on. So you reduce that risk because you know everything that's wrong, that's already wrong with the property up front. You have insurance. We talked about property insurance, but you have to have liability insurance too. If someone falls, they had a birthday party on the second floor deck, and it was too many. They had 15 people on the deck, and the deck fell over. That now you could potentially be sued, and you need your liability insurance to kick in. Whereas that now you're not putting your other assets at risk. And landlord insurance is not that expensive. That when you're looking at the different liability policies, that you can add those on to your normal policy that you have for the property coverage, and do it. I know right now I just had to get a whole nother annual policy, and we're paying $29,000 annual premium to insure our 40-unit building. And in Panama City, it's $25K for our 18-unit, which it doubled last year with just all the craziness going on with insurance. And so that's the thing that you just got to understand, that insurance is one of those things that you need, but at the same time, it's getting more and more expensive. Unfortunately, especially as different insurance companies continue to lead the Florida market, that is just driven up prices where it's insane what you have to pay. Financial planning, keeping emergency funds, managing cash flow. That's one way to manage risk, where you got money set aside. So if something happens, you can use it. Recommended for your kind of rainy day fund, keep at least 3 to 6 months worth of expenses and reserves. But then also legal compliance. You want to make sure you're following the laws, and you've got an attorney on deck that you can run stuff by. You have your that's why I love property management companies, because they have all their attorneys that look over your leases. They keep everything up to date in regards to the changing laws, where you make sure that you're in compliance. And then the easy way kind of going through with laying this process out is going through, executing it, and repeating. And it becomes a lot. We talked about, Chris was a perfect lead-in, man. We talk about the 1,000 units, but doing single family over and over and over again, that it's a grind. It's a grind because you have to do a lot of transactions to start making a big dent, depending on what your passive income number is. But that's where multifamily comes in. And so going through that, we were doing a lot of fix and flips and going through that process, turning over projects, and cherry picking some to keep as rental properties. But then it hit me after we bought our first apartment building. It's like, hold on. Like, you start looking at the passive income and how long it takes you to build that up with single family houses. It was like, okay, hold on. How about we just do this? We just sell all the single family homes, take all that profit, and then just look for another apartment to buy, and doing bigger deals. And so that's kind of the strategy that we've evolved to over the last 4 years, with kind of focusing in on fix and flips, but then coupling that with taking the profit and buying small apartments, so 40 units and below, to keep more long term. And it's become more efficient. It's faster. I would say the management is easier, but I proved that to be wrong over the last probably last 6 months, with firing 2 different property management companies for one of the projects. But getting the right team and having the right team in place, that now it's definitely a much easier way and a faster way to build wealth, hands down. And so this one here, so Lenawee, so this is the 18 unit that we own down in Panama City, Florida. So it all started with this one. So talking about the meetups and networking events. So I went to my first multifamily meetup in Orlando, Florida, back in it was late 2019 time frame, and my mind was blown. I just went in and was just seeing ordinary people that hadn't done single families, weren't doing projects, that were investors, were in bigger deals, and just getting into apartments. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, so you can actually buy apartments. You don't have to have all these millions of dollars in cash in order to do deals. And I was just mind blown. And so after the event, I was, I was infatuated with it, and I was getting ready for an appraisal for my duplex, and it was on a commercial lot. And so I was looking at the MLS and on online, and went and looked at the commercial properties, and I ran across this 18 unit that had been on the market a little bit over 90 days, and they were asking 1.35 million for it. So I reached out to the broker. Had a conversation with her. So we sent the letter of intent for $1 million. I kind of leaned on what I had learned at the conference, and then everything I already had known about real estate. And it was funny. We were looking through some pictures the other day, and my wife put this picture up of me in the bed, and I was reading How to Legally Raise Private Money, this book. And it was funny because it was during this time, because I was reading that book and putting this deal together with how I wanted to structure the debt. And we put the letter of intent together. I used my calculator, and I was like, okay, if we can get $875 a unit, I'm like, and we pay $1 million, there's no way I can mess this deal up. It was almost impossible. And so we put the offer in $1 million, and we ended up selling at $1,050,000. They wanted to be at 1.1, and we split the difference and went into it. So we went into due diligence. We already knew when we walked the property that there was water piling up. It was pooling up out the ground in the middle of the street that needed to be repaired. And so that was the bill right there in the middle, Extreme Septic and Plumbing, that they had to pay $31,000 to reroute all the water lines to get the water routed to the units in a different, a little bit further up the street, and kind of tap off where that main leak was at in the street. And so that was one of the projects that we were like, they offered to give us the money at closing and we do it afterwards, but we said nope. I'm like, man, this is my first day. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna get this fixed before we close. And so it delayed things a little bit over 6 weeks to get the permits, to get it on the schedule, and get the work done to go through. At the same time, we had a home inspection, had the inspector go through, inspect all the units. We knew 4 of the units that still hadn't been updated since the hurricane one of the motivating factors for this is the two couples that owned it, that they had other businesses, their contractor had ran off with their money that they had got from their insurance claim, and there was still a lot of work that still need to be done. But one of the things that I picked up from going to my Tuesday morning meetups on my way to work and Big Mama's on the Bayou there in Panama City with I would call it with the old heads, because the guys there, they come there, eat their breakfast, they're talking real estate. And one of the real estate investor attorneys there was talking about how he was taking over insurance claims when he was buying the properties from that had hurricane damage. And because a lot of the homeowners still had money that was left on their policies that they could go in and get. And so he was having an assumption of their claim rights and being able to do it. And so I'm like, okay, cool. And so we applied that to this as well too. And we were able to get $50,000 left over in the claim that we could bring into doing it. It took us a year to finally get the money, but it was just a one-page document that we had them sign to assign their benefits at closing to come over to us. And we worked with the insurance company, and we eventually got the check, and we're able to use that to bring that last building up to where it was able to be rented out. And so that's one of the things, we just like going to getting that information, but just being in the room, being in the right environment where you learn different things like that. We're just hearing that conversation was able to add $50,000 to this deal for that $70,000 bill that it took to bring those 4 units up. So we went through, we got the appraisal. The appraisal came in, and it was actually appraising for more than what we were buying it for. So we came in with a little bit over $100,000 in equity from day one from the purchase price. And it allowed us to go in, which was great for the bank, because it gave us a good feeling at going in that, hey, that we, it was a good solid deal what we were paying for. And so with that, we had to put $210,000 down. We financed this deal with the local credit union who we had a relationship with. And the banker told me, he's like, hey, as long as you put 5% down of your own money, you can raise the rest however you want to do it. And so that was one of the things, with that picture that I talked about with me reading that book, that it told me that, hey, that I could bring partners on and just raise second position debt and pay them off at refinance. And then I can go ahead and keep the equity in the deal. And so I kind of put a hybrid model together that we went out originally. I aimed to raise 150K, but I only was able to raise 95,000, which was fine. But I ended up keeping 77% ownership of the entity that we bought it with. And so I had another individual that's in a mastermind group with me that I had met a couple of months earlier that brought 40,000 into the deal, and I gave him 18% ownership, and then he raised another 35,000 for the deal. And then I had another college buddy that came in and put 20K, and I gave him 5% ownership. And and I put the rest in, and we made it work. And so we had that appraisal. The purchase price I kind of told you guys. Our debt on the property was $840K. Monthly payment before taxes and insurance was roughly about $4,400, and we got 80% loan to value. The term was for 5 years. It would reset the prime rate plus 0.75. So right now we got a 4% interest rate because rates were a lot lower back in, we're talking 2020. Even when we refinanced this the summer 22. That we still got a 4% rate for 5 years locked in. Because right now, if we did that, prime rate I think is 5.25. So we would be at 6. Yeah, so we'd be around 6% right now for the rate. And the appraised value came in at 1.2 million. And after repair value, after we brought that building up with the 4 units that were down, they said that the value would be 1.34 million. And so going through with the debt, we raised that 95,000 with the 5 investors total. And I told them that, hey, we'll give you a 7% return because we knew it was enough cash flow that we could pay 7% each year on that money that we raised at 95,000. And then, of course, we did the quarterly payments, and it was a 2-year note with a 1-year option. And I told them that I would give them a $20,000 equity share at the refinance. And so it worked out to where they would end up getting a 34% return on their money across 2 years. So essentially 17% cash on cash return for each one of those years. And so going through with the equity split, I talked about my partners that I came on with, me having the 77%. Partner one brought in his 40K and raised another 35,000, and he got 18%. Then I gave my college buddy 5%. And we put the deal together. That the first 6 months of the deal, I knew I was leaving in November of 2020. So I self-managed for 6 months. That I'll tell you that was the best day, one of the best days of my life, when I gave those keys over to the property management company after doing that and managing that. Because that was that was something. That was something. And but it was a process. But I don't have to do it again. That I kind of figured it out. I see how it is. I know what property managers have to deal with. And I'll gladly pay them their 10% to do their job. But they need to do their job. And so that's the thing that you'll find with a lot of property managers, that some of them aren't really good at their job. We settled that insurance claim that we took over, that we got $41,000 for the remodel and $10,000 in lost rent. And we put that towards the $70-some thousand renovations. During, even though we bought this during COVID, that our rent collection rate was around 92%. Which, thankfully, that was one of the things going in there, because a lot of people stopped paying. We didn't run into that problem. And one of the things that we did to kind of hedge that bet was working with Section 8, with being able to provide housing to not affordable housing, but being able to work with Section 8 to take Section 8 vouchers, because we knew that was guaranteed money from the government. And if we had some residents to stop paying, we know that we at least have a contingent of capital that was coming in where we could still pay all our expenses. Cost segregation study that, and I talked about that a little bit last night, that we had $186K in depreciation the first year. We remodeled those 4 down units, and and that's the sign there on property. And then my 2 little ones, they're a little bit smaller than they are today back then, because like we talked about, that's what this is. This is family business, and that's the depreciation schedule right there, that $186K. And so one of the things here that they had the non-depreciable land, they had the land value of $84,000, the building $779K. You see that 27.5 years. So allocated 81% of the purchase price was for the building. And then that 5-year property, and then the 15-year property, that we were able to accelerate those and pull those forward to that first year, that $186K. And then, so 2 years later, was the refinance. And we talked about, we were going to give the investors $20K on the refi. And so we were able to refinance, and the appraised value, instead of the $1.35 million, just with all the foolishness and everything we talked about, the appreciation with COVID, that the property value came back in at $1.76 million 2 years later, after we bought it for $1,050,000. And so we were able to increase the loan amount roughly around $438,000. Was the loan increasing. So now it went from $840,000 to $1.2 million for the debt that we had on the property, and about $7,800 when you add in the taxes and insurance, with the monthly cash flow around $5K. And so and the thing is, like, after we paid the investors back that $95,000 plus the $20,000, and then the closing cost, that it was roughly $309K left, 100% tax free, that we split based off the ownership. So 77%, we actually put 50K back towards reserves, and then we split the rest based off the ownership of the company for the split that we have. And from there, it's like, okay, what do you do next? And now that's the thing that you focus on. It's like, okay, we look at doing more deals there in the future in regards to continue to grow the money. Oh, and I'm gonna drop that video too. That's just a walkthrough video with one of the units there in Montgomery. But one of the things that I figured out after going through and doing that deal is like, okay, how do I keep going to the next level? How do I put this together and grow and do more deals? And so that's the thing that we realized, that it was like, okay, now how do we take this to the next level? Then over the last 4 years, we're being able to do more deals, partner with my clients, with Reggie, with the deals in Montgomery, with a 40 unit there, 24 unit, a 12 unit, most recently December of 23, from one of the same owners. We were able to buy the 20 unit there. in that area and kind of combine and bring all those together in order to do those deals. Whereas that now you start looking at the 40 unit apartment that we used I guess you could say it's not necessarily conventional, but a bridge loan for this to go in and buy this asset that we closed in November 22 at 48,000 a door. The rents were a lot lower, and the market rent for one bedrooms in that area is 850, 950. And being able to improve the project and go through. And so this was one that we bought then, and we're looking to combine all these together and look at refinance in the July timeframe. And then also you had for us, it was a 12 unit. And so the funny thing with that story, that the 40 unit was found from a wholesaler who who didn't have the deal under contract, but had put a whole operating agreement together and everything for the deal and was shopping the deal around and never even had it under contract, had never even talked to the owner. And so after seeing the deal, inquired about it, and it became apparent that the person didn't really know about the property and they didn't have it under contract, but we really liked the property. And so we ended up having a realtor that we had worked with in the past to reach out to the owner and see if they were interested in selling. And lo and behold, they were interested in selling. And we put the deal together, and even before we closed the deal, that it was another owner who shared property management with that same guy that owned 3 other complexes that said, hey, it's a good time for me to sell too. And I'm tired of, being a landlord. I'm in my 80s and I'm ready to sell as well. And so he said, hey, if you buy this 12 unit from me at 55,000 a door, then I'll owner finance my 24 and 20 unit 100%, and you can get those too. And so I was like, yeah, we can definitely give you 55,000 a door for that unit. And then so we also bought a month later that 24 unit at the same time that we bought the 12 unit. And we closed on the 20 unit. It was a little bit more complex because he had a private equity fund that owned a minority stake in the deal, and they didn't want to be along for the ride with the seller financing for 2 years. And so it took some things to kind of get that worked out. But it took us a year, but we closed in December of this past year, 2023, and got that in place. And and just going through and executing the business plan to make it happen. And so that's the process that you go through. It's never you have your business plan, you have it all laid out, but guess what? It very rarely does it just go smooth sailing as you expected. But it's a process, and it takes sacrifice. It takes you being able to be creative, figuring out how to get from A to B. And sometimes most times it's not a straight line. And I think the biggest thing is like, one, being resilient, being resourceful, and being able to understand that whatever it is that's coming through that you're having to deal with is knowing that you have the skill set, or who you can reach out to that can help you get over the hump, that can help you get past the situation. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that I have seen just with going through and understanding just the changes that happen with real estate, but then also just the process of going through and having people in your circle in the same rooms that you're in when you're not going through it by yourself. Because I'll tell you that one of the things that going through that was very, very lonely. Those first 5-6 years up until the last 2 or 3 years, just because I was just going through by myself. I didn't have a community. I wasn't part of a group. I didn't have a mentor, and was just kind of figuring it out as you go. Thankfully, I was real studious. I do project management for the military. And so I didn't make a whole lot of stupid mistakes, but there's a lot of stuff that I could have done a whole lot better if I had known. But guess what? You don't know what you don't know. And so that's one of the things that really just kind of pushed me. It was like, okay, how do I get more information, and how do I get the information before I actually need it? And so, but the things that done right, that the delayed gratification, being able to take and reinvest in the business, reinvest for long-term wealth, that if you take care of business and move forward with it, then you will reap the benefits long-term. And but it all starts with that first deal, taking that step of action. That Steve Harvey says that, hey, you got to jump off the cliff and you got to build your parachute while you're falling. That you're never going to have the 100% solution. You're never going to have 100% confidence that it's going to happen, and you're never going to have all the information that you need to make a decision. And despite that, you have to move forward and do something and take action and take those risks and manage those risks. And like in the military, we're saying you got to lean on your training, but know that, hey, you've been trained and you're ready to go, and you got what it takes to see the mission through. So with that, make sure I want you guys to kind of get your paper and pad out, and I'm going to kind of take you through the 10 steps for the checklist to kind of go through just what you need to look at in order to get the deal done, to kind of start going through the deal process. And so the goal with this is like having this kind of information, this checklist is going to help you save time and energy, and hopefully from making those mistakes. But it's really just a framework or game plan to kind of go through and kind of keep top of mind, put it beside your desk or something. And as you're going through and making decisions, kind of think through like, okay, have I checked all this off the box to make sure I'm good? So one, you got to define your investment goals. So figure out, hey, what's your financial objectives? Are you looking to generate long-term income? The wealth accumulation? Are you trying to just diversify from stocks and bonds? But figure out what's your goal. What are you doing? What's your long-term goal? And get clarity on that, because that's going to drive a lot of the other decisions that you're going to make. It could be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, or it could be 6 months. But figure out what your investment goal is. And then from there, you're going to move into understanding where you are right now financially, because that's one of the big things that you need to realize is that not necessarily you always have to have some skin in the game, but you need to, one, understand from your monthly income, how much of it are you going to dedicate to investing? How much money do you have access to? Can you go to the bank and get loans? Can you raise money? What's your potential borrowing capacity? Where are the resources at? Do you have money in your retirement account, savings account, a CD, or you're going to raise capital? But kind of think through across the spectrum, where are you at from a financial standpoint? Where's the capital that you're going to use to bring into these deals? Just where is that now? You understand. And now you're not looking and you get a deal and then you're trying to go through and understand where step two is like, okay, well, where I have this money at? Or who do I know this money is? Like, you need to know this up front. And so kind of sitting down and understanding this is going to kind of help you know where you're at, and then how much property that you'll be able to buy. Step three, we talked about a little bit already. Educate yourself. Learn about the different real estate investments, the market trends, the strategies that's out there. Dedicate the time on your schedule to continue to consume the information, however you learn, whether it's, you learn from videos, audio, or, reading, whatever it is. Just figure out what it is that you like to do and how you like to learn, and double down on it. Research the markets and properties. We talked a little bit about that last night, but step 4, you want to understand your market. You want to look at, hey, where's the job growth? Where's the population growth? And then where's the future rental demand? And guess what? You want to be in that path of progress. And so one of the things that you can do, you can look at 5 potential markets. If you don't know where you want to invest, maybe you want to invest in your backyard, maybe not. But you want to look at some of those metrics that we talked about last night. You want to look at the vacancy rate, the median home prices, the rental rates, and then sales prices, and kind of understand where you are and what side of town that you may potentially want to invest in. And a lot of times we call that having your buy box, where you're really clear on your asset class, the square footage or the number of bedrooms, baths, the zip code, the age, the side of town, all that information, it drives where you get clarity, where when you have something that meets your criteria, you know it just like this, because you're crystal clear on what it is you're looking for. And so you kind of set that up as your buy box. And going in after you set that criteria, that you have the location, the property type, and your expected return on investment as well too, and couple all that with your risk tolerance when you start looking at the right deals and understanding. Because like one of the things, like I don't buy in war zones, I don't buy in high crime areas, and that's one thing. So if I see a deal there, I'm like, oh, it's automatic. I'm not a candidate for it, because that's not part of my criteria. And so understanding, hey, what type of return on investment, what cash on cash return percentage. And then like the other was like, hey, you may want to have something close. I was talking with a gentleman at soccer today, and he was saying he's never really been able to wrap his mind around investing out of the local area. and how people do it. And so I kind of broke down that process. But some people may want to just, hey, you want to be within a 30-minute or 1 hour drive um, as you start off. And or you want to make sure that you have local employers as well too that are in the areas that you're buying. And so, hey, if there's a new Amazon factory or plant or warehouse, it's like, hey, I want to be within 30 minutes of that because I know all those workers that's coming in there, they got to have somewhere to stay. And so things like that, you can help you define your buy box. Number 6, build your network. I can't say this one enough that it's not how, it's who. It's not how to do something, it's who can help you do it. And being able to connect with more real estate professionals, agents, lenders, contractors, other investors, all that's going to lend itself to you being more successful and being able to obtain your goals. And so you can look at different goals that you want to set in this space. But hey, attend one local real estate networking event per month. You want to get really aggressive, you're in the, in the right, and you're in a nice size market, you could do this every week. That I know people that they had actually scaled back because they were just doing too much online and they had got out of balance where they were doing all these networking events, but they weren't underwriting deals. They weren't making offers and these other things, but they were just networking to be networking. So you want to make sure you keep a good, healthy balance and that it's all feeding into you being successful to hit your overall goal. You want to do your due diligence, do your inspections, do your research on potential properties, looking at the condition of the property, the rental history, and then you want to analyze the neighborhood. One of the things I tell my clients is you want to be somewhere with the median income in your zip code between $40,000 and $70,000. Whereas that, the data shows that if there's less than $40,000 for the median income, then it's a higher proximity for more increased delinquency and higher turnover rates in those areas, which lend to higher expenses. So you want to be somewhere in that sweet spot that kind of is found to be 40 to 70,000 when you start looking at median income for your area. And when you start looking at your property inspections, you want definitely, because you don't have to, the thing is, there's other professionals. You don't have to be an attorney, you can hire one. So you don't have to know all the legal jargon. You don't have to be a contractor. You can hire a really good contractor. You can hire a property inspector. So you don't need to know everything it is about property. And so that's one of the things when you talk about due diligence, that you definitely want to leverage your inspectors, your rental history, because you want to do due diligence on the physical property, but you want to do a financial due diligence too, with being able to look at the records for the property, the expense reports for the last year, the profit and loss statement for the property. Whereas that now you're doing that due diligence from there too, to make sure that all the data is accurate that's been presented to you. Secure multiple financing options. This one's big because you want to have the deal, but you want to make sure you have the money to go with the deal. So you want to have traditional mortgages, private lenders, partnerships. We talked about, seller financing, hard money lenders, just different ways, raising private money. So all those are different financing options that you want to kind of think about up front before you get into the deal, where it's that you can align everything and you're ready to go when it presents itself. And this is one with for is having at least 3 mortgage lenders that you want to have pre-approvals with. Whereas that you want to have multiple lenders, just because if something happens and somebody loan products change or they make a change in how they do business, that you don't want to be left kind of hanging out there and starting to try to go build a new loan relationship with another lender in the middle of a deal. Step 9, negotiate close deals. You want to go through and negotiate your terms, the closing costs and how that's going to be allocated and paid. And just based off what you find in your due diligence, you may have to lower the price. And so just being able to go through that whole process in order to get the deal done, that there's going to be sometimes you're going to have concessions, just like I talked about, where the owner had to pay $31K to fix the water issue that was going on. Or you may find deficiencies with the roof or, deferred maintenance that they're going to have to allocate money at closing to give to you just because they weren't able to remedy those issues. And then after you close and you go through that whole process, you want to manage and monitor your investments and make sure that you're doing the proper amount of property management and that you got professionals in your team that's managing your business, and you'll continue to focus on how you can grow your portfolio and continue to build your wealth while they're managing the day-to-day tasks. So those kind of the 10 steps laid out on how to get through. If you kind of think through those steps, as you're going through, that's going to kind of help you cover your bases where you're not going to have anything to kind of fall through the cracks in regards to topics that you need to be thinking about as you're going through the process. So go through, definitely give me your feedback, what you think about for the checklist. If you guys think you're like, hey, we maybe missed something or kind of went over something, and you want to get a little bit more detail, definitely share that information. And yeah, and I would love to hear more from everybody in regards to like, hey, what are the goals? What are you thinking about real estate? Kind of for going into 2024. That it doesn't even have to be I want to get one property or one multifamily. Like, hey, I just want to start going to like one event because hey, I'm an introvert. I haven't been really getting out talking to people, and that's something that I really want to focus on and start working on. And so just figure out what it is for you, because there's no wrong answer. But guess what? You got to figure out what's the right action that you need to start taking for you to be successful to get to where you want to be. And yeah, and I think that's it. Any questions? I hadn't looked at the chat.
We got a couple of questions for you, Johnny. We can start with this is a question from Antonio Robinson. Using the VA, what is the minimum credit score can you have?
So I had somebody, I got a buddy of mine as a mortgage lender. So he claims, I hadn't seen this, but he claimed they can do VA loans as low as 520. I said, man, nobody's gonna give a house to somebody with a 520. But that's what he said. And the lowest I've heard is like a 580. But with the VA loan, because it's backed by the federal government, that they push the envelope and they'll take some lower scores than some of the other like FHA, some of the other loan products are conventional. But so yeah, I would say probably around 580. And but it's worthwhile talking to some different lenders to kind of see, because it's lender dependent. Like some have different criteria.
That's for the VA loan?
Yeah.
Oh, I need to know more about. Okay. All right. I'll look into that.
All right. Well, I think we have a couple of more questions here.
Okay.
You can unmute yourself. You want to ask them yourself. But I got, what's your views on fix and flips versus new construction? It's from John.
Yep.
Oh, there he is. I'm sorry.
It's just the new construction just takes a little bit longer. Yeah, for the upfront prep, the development, the drawings, the approval with the city, versus the fix and flip. It exists. You kind of go in. It's a shorter duration. You go in, maybe have a 2 or 3 month project, depending on what needs to be fixed. So both can be successful. Both are successful, but it's really just one having the information and knowledge, because there's a lot of moving pieces with the new development. If you don't know or have somebody in your team that knows how to go from A to Z from beginning to end, that we're putting a house together, that could be a challenge. But yeah, so it really depends on your skill set and your overall goal with that. And because a lot of places you can get the land to build, but now it's like everybody doesn't know how to put it together. Because at the same time, it's hard to get fix and flip projects right now if you're not going direct to owner with marketing and things like that, with everything just kind of slowing down. So I think it's just different options, but it's really dives in on your skill set and what you feel comfortable doing and managing that risk. Because if you've never done it before, then it's probably going to be riskier on the new development side.
Sure. Absolutely. We have, I'm gonna let Megan ask this question. Megan, you still here? I think this is related to your decision for the property management company. The 2 recent ones that you fired. Okay. All right. We're gonna pass on that one.
What is I completely missed. I think we've glitched or froze up.
Okay. So is it okay? She's asking if the reasons why you actually had to fire those 2 property management companies?
Oh, they suck. Oh, they suck. Yeah, that's a whole hour session on itself. So the first one, it was crazy. So like the first one we went through, we interviewed them. They had over 5,000 units they managed between Georgia, Florida, and Alabama. And they said all the right things. They had the big team. But when they got in there, and one of the things that I learned kind of looking back on it, I should have looked at their footprint that they had in Montgomery, because they had the majority of the team in Atlanta. And it was just a hassle to get the people in Atlanta to empower the people in Montgomery, and then the staff in Montgomery wasn't even that big. And so that was one of the things kind of going back that we should have done. And I should have talked to one of the owners in Montgomery to hear his experience with the company, looking back on it. But yeah, communication was horrible. And the property, they had the property manager managing our property, that she actually came from the property, and they hired her into their company because she was familiar with the property. And then they had her managing another 200 unit building in Montgomery. And so she was doing evictions at this property. It wasn't in the best neighborhood over there. And so she was constantly in court dealing with issues at this other property and totally neglecting our property. And so it just got to the point where like they weren't executing the business plan. Things were getting behind. And we were like, okay, fine. So we're going with a local company that has like local vendors, local contractors, everything in place. And so we went to company number 2. And we had looked at them originally, but they didn't have a lot of technology. Since then, they had got AppFolio, they had software, and they hired a new, younger property manager because they were a little bit on the older side in regards to like their staff. And so we did that, and it was going good, working through that process for a couple of months. And then the new property manager that was running our complex, she up and quit. They had a disagreement, her and one of the ladies in the office, and the owner kind of talked to her real crazy, and she just up and quit, no notice. And there was no handoff with anybody else in the office, and it was a hot mess. And so 3 weeks later, we went to the company that we're with right now, who is a godsend, who's like all over it. Like, how the heck did we not end up with them in the first place? With everything. And but just the thing, you want to talk with more people and go through that process. So and like with the first one, was looking like they answered all the questions right. Probably should do a little bit more due diligence, talking to the investors in the local area that they work with, looking back on it. But it's all lessons learned and going through that process. And that's why if you don't have the right management, that it can kill a good deal, that you can mess up a good deal. And luckily we had a really good deal, and whereas that it still was something, where we could move forward, we could recover even with the incompetent management, and move out on it. So
Okay, awesome. Sorry, I finally found my mic at least.
yeah.
But thank you. I was just like, I don't know why I just wasn't thinking about hiring bad companies. Like in my head, I'm just like, hire property management, and I was just skipping to the next step. But that's definitely something to consider that could mess up my deal. So thank you.
Yep, no, 100%. When we got rid of the first one, I was talking to my bookkeeper, and the owner, he was like, pretty much everybody that we managed books for, they did turnover with their property management company. They got rid of their property management company and made a change. That it's kind of, unfortunately, it's the norm across the industry that a lot of them aren't that good.
Yeah, that's good to know. I was just working for a storage facility property management company, and I can say, working from the inside, I would have to agree with that, unfortunately. I mean, I was great, but
Awesome. There we go. Thanks, Megan.
Can we
Yeah,
still
thank you.
for a few more questions? Johnny, everyone, you still good?
Yeah.
Okay, so got Leslie here. Leslie, I'm gonna ask this question for you, okay? I know you're doing something. Please discuss LLCs for property and strategy for virtual address for the LLC or trust. This is a great question, by the way.
Yep, no, that is that. Yep, you can do a virtual address, so you don't have to use your home address, or you can do like a PO box address as well. to kind of set that up. And the same thing for your trust or whoever the trustee that you want to have to kind of be over your trust. You can kind of set that up where the biggest thing is you don't want to use your personal home address with that. So you have some flexibility with how you want to do it, kind of between the two. Yeah, but and so most of the times, like depending on the bank, so like with credit unions and hard money lenders, then most of them, if you're doing a investment property, they're only gonna lend to LLC. They won't lend to an individual. So when you start talking about buying investment property, or especially commercial property as well too, that you have to have your LLC in place to be able to take those loans, because usually they won't lend to a personal individual in those cases. Okay.
Like there's a related that. You want to ask that, Chris? Where's Chris? There it is.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's a two-sided question. Does your LLC or trust own your properties? And my second question is in regards to raising funds, does it make sense, or have you bought lists of wealthy investors who you may be, be able to target, who are interested in funding your multifamily deals by just doing it over the phone, by just cranking out the calls, 200 calls a day, 150 calls a day until you get 30, 40, 50 people on the phone and you do your presentation, you get funding. Because I've seen people do this before, 15, 20 years with the who's who of lists, and
Right.
you just crank it out. You just boom, you just keep going. Have you done that before? Or have you seen that work in this strategy in multifamily?
Yep. No, great question. Because it definitely works. And now a lot of people you see they raise money on social media with Facebook. LinkedIn is really, really big for that. With doing that, having meetups, having webinars online and webinars in person, where in the past, you would see people would get they would rent a room at the hotel and would have something there, have an event like that. And you can still do in person stuff like that, because you could buy a list of people who have self-directed IRAs, things like that, where you can get lists of data or wealthy individuals that would be or that may have invested in syndications before, or that would have a high probability of investing in the deal just because they have the net worth.
Thank you. And does your LLC or does your trust own all your multifamily properties?
Yep. So the LLC. So with having multiple individuals, so you would have the LLC is owned, and then now your ownership within the LLC can be owned by your trust, or it can be owned by another LLC that's owned by your trust. So it's some different ways on how you can partner in the deal, because with the apartment deals that I do, just because we're not looking to sell in the near term, that we don't do kind of like the traditional syndication model is you improve the property, then you sell it, everybody gets their money, and then you kind of go off and find the next deal. But you can look at doing like joint ventures where you personally or your LLC partners with other LLCs and to form that entity, or with other trusts that form that entity.
Wow, thank you. Appreciate that.
Can I ask a question?
I would like to know, in regards to codes with the NAICS, what is the best code to use when it comes to real estate? Whereas when you're putting the code down on paper, it's not looked upon real estate as a risk. Because I'm understanding that there's certain codes when it comes to real estate, when it comes to the NAIC, that will deter some companies from working with you.
Yeah, no, great question. So normally I would look at something along the lines of like property management or consulting is one. Kind of those two are, I guess, not red flagged in regards to real estate investing per se. So if you want to look at something like potentially with consulting or with property management, that wouldn't necessarily be Because like if you do like construction, like real estate construction, or even if real estate investing with some of those codes, that would kind of trigger that. But usually you'll be fine with consulting and just kind of keeping it broad. Hey, you're doing property consulting or renovations and or renovation consulting with the properties, that you should be good.
Thank you.
Yep, no, that's a good question.
Johnny, I got a quick question, if I could. You mentioned a book earlier about learning how to raise capital. Are you going to teach us in our mentor or a part of the boot camp how to raise capital, or can I get the book and go through it? And the second part is, can you do some of these on a subject to, and have you run into any deals where you can do subject to on a multifamily?
Oh, that's a good question.
No, 100%. Yeah, because the thing, so, and the cool thing is that mostly every commercial loan is assumable, where you can take over the existing debt.
Huh.
Yep.
Wow, that's a game changer.
Yep. So you definitely have that option with assuming the existing loans on multifamily deals. And the first question was
a book for learning how to raise capital.
The book. Yep. How to legally,
you can drop it
legally raise property capital. Yep. So I'll drop that in there, and then I'm actually going to upload some about 4 hours of content in the community for you guys to kind of dive into that, because that's a whole nother kind of walkthrough or mini course. We're going through that process, and I actually got some information on like previous, like how to put a presentation together and when you get in front of people and go through that process with raising the money.
Yeah, I would love that.
Hey, John,
for sure.
I got a question for you, Johnny. In terms of the what's your metrons for occupancy when you're looking at a property, looking to do an acquisition of that property, in terms of like the percentage of it being already occupied versus, let's say, under 50% on a lower end, but you know you're going to be able to get the money out eventually. So what's the weight you put that into that? As far as factors.
Yep. So for me, like, if you got a vacant building, it could be considered, the bank will consider risky, but you can get a bridge loan. And for me, it's like, now you don't have to wait for people to move out and leases and everything. Then now you can go in and completely renovate and force appreciation in a short amount of time because you got less tenants. So if you're at 50%, occupancy, then now you got the other 50%. You can come in and immediately go in, add value, increase rents, get new people in, and start that process. So really, like, it's good to have cash flow coming in, but depending on your loan product, and because a lot of times, like with the bridge loans, they're going to give you the money to buy the deal, and they're going to give you all the money to do the renovations. So if you don't have anybody in your way that's living there, you can go in and start doing all those renovations, start leasing it up. And then, 6 months, you can have a 30 unit completely renovated. And now it's going from zero income coming in. If you got 30 units and it's $900 a door, now you got $27,000 coming in every month, where it was zero 6 months ago. So now you go in, you take that building that was worth, 25% of what it is now. And then, hey, if it's bringing in 27,000 and half of that, it goes to expenses. So you got about 14, 15K, and, a 7 cap, now you got like a $3 million building. Oh, with the number. So it just kind of depends. So there's opportunity, with the right loan product, that if it's completely vacant or if it's, 100% occupied, but there's opportunity to increase the rents over time, that it's just know it's going to take a little bit longer because you got to wait for the leases to end, or people that's on month to month, to where you can kind of start and kind of go into that transition period, but it's just going to take a little bit longer.
Gotcha. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no, that's a good one.
We got 2 more questions for you, Johnny. So would you suggest starting with a single family for first buy, or multifamily or commercial, knowing what you know now?
It depends on the individual. For me, definitely multifamily. But once again, it's all about like, hey, if you're leaving from Florida, you're going to California, that you can get there by car, you can get there by plane. But it's really how fast do you want to get there? And so that's the thing. Like with single family, you can get there if you're trying to get $5,000 of passive income. It's just going to take you longer to get there. But if you invest in multifamily, you can get there. It's just like being on an airplane. You can get there in 4 or 5 hours. And so it's just a kind of just your goals and understanding what it is that you want, and just understanding that, hey, it's just a vehicle. All real estate is a vehicle to get you to where you want to be, that time freedom, that passive income. And now you start looking at, okay, single family is going to get you there, but multifamily will probably get you there a lot faster.
For sure. What's your take on buying just land?
It's an opportunity, but you just got to figure out how you're going to leverage that land to create passive income. It's like, are you going to lease it out to somebody to park 18-wheelers on it, or what are you going to do with the land? Just like, how are you going to monetize it? How are you going to be able to create passive income from it? What's your strategy? Are you going to parse it out and prep it for new construction, then sell lots? So you just got to understand what's your strategy with buying the land and owning the land, or how you're going to monetize it as an investment. And what's the time frame? Is it a long-term play where you're going to own the land 10, 20 years, or and let it go up in value, or what? So it just kind of really depends on the investor and what their goal is.
That's an interesting question. All right. Chris, have you asked this question yet for the raising funds? Okay, cool. Any other questions, you guys? We went a little over time today, but that's really great.
I got
Great.
one more for you, Johnny.
Okay.
Have you ever
okay.
Oh,
My bad.
I'm sorry. Was that me?
No,
Nope.
you're good.
Okay, I got one more question for you. Have you ever
Okay.
used tax credits and like maybe sold them to the bank to exchange it for the funds?
I have not. I have
Okay.
heard of leveraging the tax credits, doing that, but I have not done a deal where we monetize the tax credits like that.
Okay. Because we have a lot of incentives in this area. It's a massive amount of people moving in the low country area of South Carolina. And so they're always
Okay.
talking about tax credits and utilizing tax credits. And I was listening to somebody, and they were talking about how they use the tax credits to be able to get like at least 40% of the deal. And so they would leverage the tax credits and then sell the tax credits to the bank for at least 40%, and then they can exchange that, because they got Community Reinvestment Act. So the
Yep.
CRA, from the bank, so they got to use that to be able to get that money, and that's another way to bring that funding to the deal. And sometimes they could actually get more than 40%, but at least 40% of the deal. So I was just wondering if you ever used that, because I didn't know much about that. I just started finding out about it too.
Okay. Yeah, no, I've heard about it, but I have not participated in any of those deals. But I think it's definitely worthwhile with building relationships and understanding those banks that's offering that, and have that available with kind of getting to know the process and kind of what kind of deals they're looking for, and just seeing if you can kind of mirror the two together.
Hey, John, if you don't mind me asking, going through the paperwork yesterday, I noticed that you have, can you see yourself buying, multi-family property in 5 years? I've seen that before, but why the 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
You said see myself buying multifamily 5 years from now?
I saw somewhere in some of the paper in one of the slides,
The
one
worksheets.
of the yes, that you asked us a question, and I don't have it in front of me, so I don't know the exact question that you asked, but it had to do with a 5-year mark. So I was just thinking in my head earlier, why the 5 year? Why not like a 2-year mark or a 1 year or a 3-year mark? Why the 5 year?
Yep. So really just for when you start looking at like the strategic planning, that a lot of times they'll push you out kind of 5 years, kind of as the point as a point in time to kind of look at for planning. But definitely you want to collapse that and look at the 1, 3, 6 month mark. So you want to look at kind of some of those intermediary milestones leading up to 5 years. So usually, like when we start looking at budgets and projects, it look that usually you go out over a 5 year span to kind of go and look and plan and do planning, and then now kind of step back and you're going to look at milestones that lead you out that way, and then looking at understanding how you need to course correct as you go along that path. So really 5 years is kind of a point that's out there. It's not 10 years, but it's a little bit more than 1 year for you to kind of plan out and think. Just really is using that as a something to kind of think further out and kind of think outside of the box in regards to just the near term. But 5 years kind of that first step, getting out of the near term time frame to kind of think a little bit more long term.
Yeah, this is definitely a long-term game for me. This is big picture, long-term. This isn't quick gratification. This is long-term perpetual wealth for my kids' lineage and their kids and their kids and their kids. This is not about me. This is about people who I will never, ever meet ever in my life. So thanks. I appreciate that.
Yep. No, 100%.
Amen. Amen.
And then I think the next step would be like, okay,
Yeah.
so, to get to that goal out there, how far do you think you need to go in the next 5 years? And so really start kind of collapsing that. Like, hey, I know I want to be here 10 years. So if I want to be here in 10 years, then I need to probably be halfway in 5 years. And I probably need to be about 10% of the way in the first year. It's like, okay, if I'm in year 3 and I'm only 10%, like, okay, I got to look at how I'm going to make up. How do I need to adjust my strategy? So, you still want to kind of think through in the near term with what are the tasks that you need to be doing on a weekly basis, monthly basis, that's going to lead you to hitting that mark for 1 year, 3 year, 5 year going through, because that's what's going to move the needle, whereas that you can make sure you're measuring your performance all along the way. Because you can't really measure something that you're not tracking, and then you're not going to be able to change that performance if you're not measuring it on a continuous basis.
All right, we need to end this live because y'all going into my slides and my training for tomorrow, guys. Stop talking.
All right, heard.
That's a mic drop. All right, yes.
Yep. No, great questions. Great question. No, I love it.
Yeah, great discussion tonight. Thank you so much, guys. So tomorrow we're gonna be seeing you again, so don't miss out. We'll be sending you some worksheets. Now, Johnny have talked about for 3 days the strategies and everything, but tomorrow we're gonna talk about more on how you can implement all of those. And on Friday, we're going to wrap it up on how you can actually fund your deal. So a lot of questions here, raising capital, how you access all these things. So yeah, I'm excited for the last 2 days.
Let's go.
We're going to end this now.
Heck yeah.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Have a
Thanks.
good night, guys.
Bye.
All right. Good night.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. See you later.
How do I stop the? Are we still on? Have I stopped
it's
it?
still-
Is that
Still
you?
recording.
That you, Faye? Faye, is that you?
Yes, yes, Donnell.
We missed our meeting. I'll get back with you after next week.
No problem. No problem. We got extended in the boot camp, so it's okay.
Okay. All right.
All
Talk to you soon.
All righty. Thank you. Thanks,
Take
Donnell.
care.
All right, y'all.